Oh, hi guys. Hit it. Alright guys, how y'all doing? Welcome to Nikki's World. I'm Nikki, your host, and today we got a lot to talk about today. I want to read something that I saw from Justice Clarance Thomas. He talked about social media today, so that's going to be a topic we're going to be talking about today. But before we get any further, guys, if you guys love Nikki's World so much, please consider donating a cup of coffee because, frankly, for a price of a cup of coffee, guys, y'all help keep this podcast show alive. Y'all help me curate more stories and more topics like this to talk about. I do accept Bitcoin donations. I'm also on Patreon if you guys want to sponsor this podcast show. If you guys love Nikki's World so much, please hit that like, subscribe. Please give me a review, good, bad, and the ugly. And before we literally get this damn show on the road, if y'all love this episode and any of my other episodes on Nikki's World, please consider sharing this across all the social media platforms that are out there today. Woo! Okay, guys. This is going to be a simulcast because not only am I podcasting this show as well, I'm also live casting on Instagram as well. So for all my listeners that are on Instagram right now that I'm live casting, hi guys. So we're going to be talking a lot. So today's podcast show, we are going to talk about what Justice Clarance Thomas said today. And he said this in NTD, Breitbart, The Federalist, and WorldNet Daily. What he talked about, and this is what I'm going to read. From the headline from Breitbart, Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court will soon have to address tech censorship. I wholeheartedly agree because Justice Clarence Thomas is right on this because sooner or later, big tech censorship is going to wind up on the lap of the Supreme Court. One way or the other, guys, this is going to wind up on the lap of SCOTUS. Whether they like it or not, whether big tech likes it or not, it's going to wind up on the Supreme Court's lap. And they're going to have to deal with this one way or the other. And what Justice Clarence Thomas has said in his opinion was that he believes that big tech and social media should be regulated like a public utility. Thank you, Justice Clarence Thomas, for agreeing with me on this one, guys. Thank you. Because I've been advocating for a damn long time, guys, that social media and big tech have gotten way too big in this country. And I believe that regulating them like a public utility and making social media be subjected to public utility commissions is the right way to go. Because look at what's going on with Facebook. Facebook has become so big that it's essentially like another country. Okay? Now, what Justice Clarence Thomas have written, and yes, by the way, all the articles that I talk about will be in the show notes. So for y'all to see and read and probably figure out what I'm talking about. But what Justice Clarence Thomas wrote, and he outlined a legal argument for why social media companies might need to be subject to strict rules forbidding them from denying services to users for any reason or no reason, including possibly of designating them as common carriers, which would effectively eliminate their ability to ban or censor users for legal First Amendment protected speech. Totally agree right there, Justice Clarence Thomas. I'm way with you on this one. Okay? And I know Breitbart wrote about this in their article, and yes, it's going to be in the show notes today, folks. And yes, I do agree with him. And Thomas indicated, quote, in the article, that the Supreme Court will soon have to address the issues of tech censorship. And he said, we will soon have no choice but to address how our legal doctrines apply to highly concentrated, privately owned information infrastructure such as digital platforms. I wholeheartedly agree with this, because you know why? I've been banned effectively on Twitter. That's why I've never gone back to Twitter. YouTube has basically, first they let me on their platform, then they kicked me out, and then they let me back on. I think it's time that social media be regulated as a public utility. And what Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in the article today backs my assertion right there, backs my view right there. Big tech has become too big and too powerful in this country. Now it's time to regulate them, okay? It's the same way we did with the railroads, guys. And it's the same way we did with the telephone companies. Just look at what happened to AT&T back then when they got too big and too powerful because they were eating up all the small companies. And then pretty soon the federal government came in and said, nope, we're breaking y'all up. You know, you can't have one company dominating the whole landscape, the whole commerce landscape. So that's why Justice Clarence Thomas said that like this: sooner or later, big tech censorship is going to wind up on the lap of the Supreme Court, and they're going to have to deal with this one way or the other. So this is like a shot across the bow to big tech from the Supreme Court saying, keep this up, because sooner or later we're going to deal with this. And when they deal with this, then big tech's not going to like what the Supreme Court's going to do. So this is why, guys, what Justice Clarence Thomas wrote is basically a shot across the bow. It's essentially saying to big tech, to people like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and all that, your days of censoring people just because you hate their speech, you hate their opinions, you hate their views is over. Because sooner or later, you're going to wind up in the Supreme Court of the United States, and you're going to have Roberts Court to deal with this. And we all know what the makeup of the Supreme Court of the United States is made up. So it's going to wind up being like a 5-4 decision. Which 5-4 is going to agree with Justice Clarence Thomas? I don't know, but I would probably say more to the conservative judges there would probably agree. You'll probably get one or two of the liberal judges to agree, but I would hedge my bet that they would agree with Justice Clarence Thomas, okay? And also, guys, you can read Clarence Thomas's roadmap to reining in social media on the Federalist, which is also going to be linked in the description as well. Because what he wrote is a roadmap to reining in on big tech and social media. I firmly agree to this. I believe this because you know why? Big tech censorship is out of control. I mean, literally, just for like having an argument or disagreement with someone can get you booted off social media, can get you deplatformed. This is why, guys, we are starting to see a parallel economy, a parallel social media system where you have the liberal side of social media like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and then parallel to that, you have the alternative side like Gab, MeWe, Minds, Parler, Rumble. They're building parallel social media systems because people are frankly getting fed up with Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter censoring them, deplatforming them, shadow banning them. They're getting fed up. And as a result of getting fed up, you have basically alternative social media sites propping up. And then at the same time, guys, you have like the liberal social media sites censoring things that are acceptable to people. Like, say, for example, nudists. Nudists have been banned off of YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, just for showing like simple non-sexual nudity. And they're migrating to alternative platforms like MeWe. Okay? That's why, guys, that's why it's like this. Big tech, in my opinion, has basically been too big, too powerful. And what Supreme Court Justice Clarance Thomas wrote today is what I've been harping and arguing for, like, ever since social media has basically blocked, banned, suspended me so many times. I've been advocating that social media be regulated like a public utility and basically making social media companies comply with public utility commissions in all 50 states and the federal government. I've been an advocate of regulation because how else are you going to regulate freedom of speech if you regulate it the way like this? You can say to social media companies, you can have your platform, but you just can't discriminate. You just can't ban people. You just can't remove people. If you want to remove someone from social media, you have to go through the Public Utility Commission and explain your reason why you want to remove them. Simple as that. It's simple as that. Same thing to telephone companies. Telephone companies couldn't cut off your service for any reasons. If they wanted to cut phone service from you, they have to go to the Public Utility Commission and they have to go through a public hearing. And those public hearings are where people can air their griefs at. And this is why I'm a firm believer of forcing social media companies into being regulated like public utility commissions. I'm a firm believer in that. Yes, I am a firm believer of freedom of speech and the First Amendment. Okay? But the problem is that our First Amendment rights end when you log online, when you go online to like social media sites or any other site, because just for agreeing someone else's opinion or disagreeing with someone else's opinion can get you deplatformed. And that's wrong. And that's basically like this. That's not what I fought for. Okay? And then you have this on WorldNet Daily, which I also read. Clarence Thomas just pushes brilliant way to control social media giants. And Supreme Court Justice suggests treating Twitter and Facebook as utilities so they can be regulated. Totally agree there, man. I totally agree there. And he wrote this, and I'll quote this from the first paragraph. In a concurring opinion Monday, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas said social media companies have too much power over public speech, suggesting they be treated as utilities so they can be regulated by the government. And the article even goes further, says the sole opinion came in the court's dismissal of a case over former President Donald Trump's effort to block critics from his personal Twitter account. And the article even says, Thomas said, a few private companies such as Twitter and Facebook have power to cut free speech, warning that the Supreme Court will soon need to address this issue. Been saying that all along, guys. Sooner or later, big tech censorship is going to wind up on the lap of the Supreme Court. And owners of Facebook, Twitter, and Google are going to have to answer for this in front of Robert's courts. And when that happens, guys, I'm going to be there with my drink, popcorn, beer, and sit and watch Mark Zuckerberg or Twitter owner or Google having to contort and explain in front of the Supreme Court why they censor freedom of speech. I would pay royally to get front row seats to that, because as soon as I hear them try to contort and all that, you know well how the courts are going to vote on that. But like I said, guys, like I said, I agree with Justice Clarence Thomas in what he said. And this is the one paragraph from WorldNet Daily that I'm going to quote verbatim that I agree to. This is not the first and only case that raises issues about digital platforms. Thomas wrote, while this case involves a suit against a public official, the court properly rejects today a separate petition alleging digital platforms and not individuals on those platforms have violated public accommodation laws, the First Amendment, and antitrust laws. Which means sooner or later, social media is going to have its judgment day. And when that happens, it's going to change big tech forever. It's going to change in ways that Mark Zuckerberg has never imagined when he was sitting in a college dorm room at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He's not going to be able to imagine the day when his empire comes crashing down, all because of an opinion that Justice Clarence Thomas wrote. So I'm sitting there going like this, guys. Sooner or later, big tech's days are numbered. Big tech's days of reining in free speech, allowing certain groups to get away with things while other groups are being denied the same right. Because if you look at it, guys, if you're a leftist and a liberal, you get to get away with saying stuff on social media that a conservative, libertarian, or common folk would never get away with. So in the spirit of what Justice Clarence Thomas have said, that to me is a violation of the First Amendment. You can't have a First Amendment for thee and not for the rest. You got to have it either for everyone or you don't have it at all. It's plain and simple, guys. It's really that simple. And it's also simple because if you look at it this way, social media companies are like town public squares. And when these people try to remove the town public square where people can voice their opinion, that is clearly a First Amendment violation right then and there. It clearly is. That's why I like this. Even on NTD, they wrote like this. Although both companies are public, one person controls Facebook, like Mark Zuckerberg, and two control Google, he wrote. And it's like this. What Thomas also wrote is that he noted that there are arguments suggesting digital platforms such as Twitter and Facebook are sufficiently akin to common carriers or place of accommodation to be regulated in this manner. I have to agree to this. And if y'all get a chance, guys, read read the full page. I believe it's like 20 or so pages of Justice Clarence Thomas's opinion, and people right now are reading it, and they're realizing that what Justice Clarence Thomas have wrote is basically what's going to happen. And I tell you right now, as I read this opinion right now, and I'm bringing this up on my file, and basically Clarence Thomas writing the agreement to it, I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you right now, it's basically over 25 pages of this, and if you guys had to read this, I'm telling you right now, what it all boils down to is that Justice Clarence Thomas has written a roadmap into how you rein in big tech. It's basically a roadmap where one of these days it's going to wind up in front of him in court. And when that happens, Mark Zuckerberg's days of being the like basically the de facto third country on the digital realm is over. Which means government is going to walk in and say to Mark Zuckerberg, your days are over, pal. Your days of controlling everybody's speech, over. Because sooner or later, the Supreme Court's going to come into his office and probably say, you can't do this, you can't do that, nope, you're done. And get the DOJ, because we got a RICO statute violation or an antitrust statute violation investigation. But like I said, man, I'm all for freedom of speech on social media. I'm all for it, okay? Because the reason why, it gives people an avenue to speak. It gives people a place where you can speak your mind, speak your views, speak your opinions, and you can basically say what you want without fear of censorship, without fear of being deplatformed, without fear of basically people hounding you, okay? And that's the problem we have right now on social media, is that you can't speak your mind without the fear of like people hounding you, harassing you, doxing you, or basically trying to deplatform you. And look, I've been deplatformed many times, but I don't worry, because you know why? I have my alternative social media sites like Gab, MeWe, Minds, Parler, Rumble, the top five alternatives. And I also have one in Russia too called VK. I have my alternatives because you know why? If the liberal ones like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube decide to remove me from their platform, I'm not going to run and cry and have a hissy fit. I'm just going to sit there and go like this. Yeah, what are you going to do? I'll go to Gab. I'll go to MeWe. I'll go to Minds. I'll go to Parler. I'll go to Rumble. I'll go to VK. I'll go to your rivals. And that's that in itself, guys, is called free market capitalism. It's like the left sitting there saying like this, oh, if you don't like Facebook, if you don't like Twitter, YouTube, build your own platform. Well, they did. People build their own platform, and then now the left is having a tizzy over the alternative platforms. And they're saying that, oh, we don't like the alternative platforms. Well, here's the thing. You either love competition or you hate competition. That's all it boils down to. And to me, big tech hates competition. And the government loves competition because they love free markets. So this is where government's going to have to step in and say to big tech, you can't do that. You can't shut out everybody else. You got to give everybody else equal opportunity to compete in the marketplace. Don't like it? Tough. Because we'll start will start punishing you if you start running out your competitors out. It's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. I've said this many times, and I've said it again and again and again, is that Big Tech's days is numbered. What Justice Clarance Thomas wrote today, guys, is a roadmap to regulating social media. And social media and Big Tech, you better wake up and smell the damn coffee, because sooner or later, what you're doing is pushing the Supreme Court into making a decision that you're going to regret later down the road, and then sit there at the bar and go, we shouldn't have done this in the damn first place. We should have not done this. And look at what they're doing to them. I'm going to picture that. That day, Mark Zuckerberg sits at a bar somewhere and then drinks over the decision that the Supreme Court handed to him. And it ain't going to be pretty. And he's probably going to be drunk over it. And this is why, guys. The way things are going with social media, where Facebook's eating up all the competitors, all the rivals, that's going to end sooner or later. Justice Clarence Thomas said it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but it's gonna wind up on the Supreme Court one way or the other. And when I saw these articles today, and yes, I'll reiterate this, guys, whatever I talk about on the podcast today, they will be in the show notes in the description as well. Because you know why? I believe in citing what I talk about. I believe in citing my sources, because I don't want to leave my listener guessing, like, what did I talk about? Where's your source that you're talking about? That's why I believe in citing your facts, citing your sources, so when your listeners are trying to relate, where you get this idea? Where you talking this from? I link the articles that I'm talking about. That way, I let the facts speak for themselves. And I also let my listeners see where I'm getting my stories from. So that way, they can be informed like I do. Okay? So, anyway, as we're closing down with the podcast today, I just want to say my final thoughts on this is that, look, I do agree with Justice Clarence Thomas and what he wrote in his opinion. And basically, what he firmly said, guys, is that sooner or later, the Supreme Court is going to have to make a decision on Big Tech. They're going to have to decide how they're going to deal with Big Tech in censoring people and violating their First Amendment rights. Because sooner or later, if Roberts Courts or Justice Clarence Thomas has their way, Big Tech's days is over. Big Tech's reign of censorship and violating First Amendment rights is going to be over. Because sooner or later, I'm telling you this, censorship is going to end in social media, because Big Tech is going to, not Big Tech, the Supreme Court is going to say like this: oh no, you can't do that. You can't like hide female nipples, because if you allow male nipples to show, you have to allow females as well. Otherwise, we can call that like violating First Amendment rights or violating the Equal Protection Clause. It's going to wind up like that, guys. It's going to come down to that, okay? So anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed Nikki's World. All right, this article came suddenly as I was reading it this morning. Okay, and it took me a whole day to think and digress and talk this out and figure how am I going to talk about this on the podcast show. So this is what it takes to run a podcast show, guys. That's why every morning I do get social media feeds and I try to see what's interesting to talk about, okay? So y'all get an idea what I want to talk about, what I want to say. All right? So thanks again for listening to Nikki's World. I'm Nikki, your host. And like I said, guys, if y'all love this podcast show, please hit that like and subscribe. And please give me a review, good, bad, and the ugly. And if you guys love this show, please consider sharing this across all the social media platforms that are out there today. I'm Nikki, your host. I will see y'all soon. Bye for now.